What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about Donald Trump. So, I'm going to be talking about Trump in regards to two topics. First, I'm going to be talking about the charges and convictions and whether or not I believe that will influence the 2024 election, which is this year. And then I'm going to also be talking about whether or not I believe Donald Trump has a good chance of winning the election, which I do. I'm going to dive into that. And also some potential case in which Joe Biden could win. So we're going to dive into all that in this video. Number one, so let's dive into the whole charge and everything, right? Look, for those who may not know, and I know you guys, some of you guys, but for those who may not know, Donald Trump was convicted of 34 counts in regards to falsifying business records, in regards to the hush money payments that were made to Stormy Daniels. The implication is that these hush money payments were made to influence the election by essentially keeping voters in the dark about, you know, all the things that were done in regards to Stormy Daniels. And so this means that Donald Trump is now a felon, right, under New York law. And of course, you know, when this conviction happened, you know, the entire media was just dancing and they were having a fanfare. They were like, yeah, we got Trump and everything. That's great. Now the question becomes, okay, now that Trump is a felon and he's been convicted, great. Do I believe that will actually influence the 2024 election? Personally, I will say no. And the reason is because the same way in the election of 2020, Joe Biden was running against Trump's presidency and his performance. When it comes to 2024, Trump is running against Joe Biden's presidency and his performance. And because of Joe Biden's just horrible mismanagement of the economy and horrible mismanagement of foreign policy, this gives Donald Trump an incredible advantage when it comes to the election in general. So yes, you know, this may turn off some people, maybe even some moderate Republicans, but I feel like overall, Joe Biden's look the same way, you know, despite all of the concerns about Biden's age and everything, you know, Donald Trump's horrible record in regards to COVID-19 was enough to allow Joe Biden to win the election. And it wasn't just Biden, because you also had criticism in regards to his involvement in the crime bill and everything. So despite all of that stuff, Joe Biden was still able to win because of just how horrible, you know, Donald Trump was when it came to COVID. The same thing applies to when it comes to Trump. Despite how bad Trump is, even with these convictions, you know, Biden's horrible record in regards to the economy and foreign policy will be enough to allow Trump to, I think, to gain a victory. So, as far as I'm concerned, the conviction of Donald Trump, I believe, will have no bearing on the overall election. And of course, you know, recently, I believe even Hunter Biden, I think, was implicated in some legal issues. I'm not sure exactly what happened with it, but I believe he's also gone on some legal issues. So even that may also play a role, possibly. But overall, when it comes to the conviction thing, I think that Joe Biden's whole performance on the economy and foreign policy will play more of a bearing, and I think that will weigh more with the voters than Donald Trump's overall conviction in regards to, you know, overall conviction of him now being a official felon. And let me just say real quickly, right? One thing that really did surprise me about this was the fact that when Donald Trump was convicted and he became a felon, you had so many white Republicans that came out and said, "Hell, you know, this is not going to hurt Donald Trump because he's going to appeal to black voters." And I'm just like, what? So, in other words, yes, although I do agree that the conviction, everything may not, probably won't influence him as much in regards to the election because of Biden's horrible performance in regards to the economy and foreign policy. White Republicans tried to flip the script and make it seem as if this conviction of Trump and him being a felon is somehow going to help him with the black vote. And what got me so mad was how they were saying, well, you know, black voters are definitely going to support Trump because they understand what it means to be crucified by the criminal justice system. And I'm just like, wait a minute. White Republicans, this isn't the win that you guys think it is, okay? Because if you guys are, look, let me just say, look, I do agree that Trump's conviction will not affect them during the election as much. But the reason I'm saying that is because of Joe Biden's poor performance on the economy and foreign policy. What you guys are trying to say is that Trump, being convicted will not affect him, not because of Joe Biden's poor performance on the economy and foreign policy, but because, he's going to be able to quote unquote appeal to the black vote because they know what it's like to be in the system. What? But also keep in mind that when you guys say this kind of stupid stuff, you're actually undermining yourselves. And I'm going to tell you why. Whenever black Americans come out here and they talk about how, hey, we're being marginalized, the police is treating us unfairly, right? You guys always say back the blue, law and order, comply, right? Whenever black Americans talk about their mistreatment by law enforcement and the justice system, you guys love, back in the blue. So my thing is, how did you guys go from back the blue, law enforcement comply, to all of a sudden now it's F the police, F the FBI, F the system, we support felon Donald Trump, the black community to support us because they want... When you guys are saying that black Americans need to support Donald Trump because they quote unquote know how it's like to be undermined by the system, do you know what you're actually saying? What you're saying is that this entire time, when black Americans were talking about how they were being brutalized by the system, you guys knew that everything they were saying was true. That means this entire fucking time, you knew everything that they were saying about law enforcement, about everything was true. And yet you still went out there with your full chest and lied and said, oh, they're lying. There is no racism. They just need to comply. So it's like, look, I do agree that Trump's conviction will probably not affect him during the election. But that's because, from my point of view, of Biden's poor performance on the economy and foreign policy. But for you guys to think that, Trump's conviction is somehow going to go into to get the black vote, and that's how it's going to help Donald Trump, that's insane to me. Because all black Americans are going to hear is that you guys are actually worse than even imagine. Because that means that this entire time you knew that everything black Americans were saying about law enforcement was true. You knew there was injustice. You knew black Americans were being unjustly treated. But because it didn't affect you, because it wasn't a problem, you guys had no problem looking the other way. So for also, before I have to consider, because I have to address too, for all the black conservatives out there who are trying to somehow, frame the Trump conviction and the Trump charges as somehow going to appeal to black voters, you doing that is only going to push more black voters away, because all that will tell black voters that you guys are literally a bunch of lying bigots. Because this entire time, you've been gaslighting black Americans, telling them that there is no systemic racism, stop being woke, right? Stop the complaining, right? You've been saying the whole time. So essentially, what you're essentially admitting is that this entire time, you knew that there was systemic racism. You knew black Americans were being fucked by the system. You knew that law enforcement was targeting black Americans. But because it didn't affect white people, you didn't care. And you went as far as to gaslight black Americans and try and pretend as if it wasn't happening and do all this dumbass rhetoric about pull yourself by your own bootstraps. Stop being woke. And so for you to now come out and say, because our favorite white president has now been implicated, now all of a sudden you want to acknowledge the system? We don't stop. So I have to address that because although I do agree that, Trump's conviction and charges will not affect him in the election, that's because of Biden's poor performance in the economy and foreign policy. But when I see white conservatives who are trying to frame it as if, the real reason why Trump will not be affected, it's not because of Biden's mismanagement of the economy and foreign policy. It's because he's going to be able to appeal to black voters because they know how it's like to be hurt by the system. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, because you saying that is just going to alienate more black voters, because all that will prove to them is that this entire time you've been lying through your teeth. This entire time you knew the system was fucking over black Americans, but because you did not care, you just went out here and lied and pretended as if it wasn't happening. And now that, one of your people, or I guess your favorite white president has been touched, now all of a sudden you want to admit, oh yeah, the system actually is unfair to black Americans. No. Keep the same energy, right? Pull yourself by your own bootstraps. Donald Trump should have, quote unquote, complied with law enforcement. Stop complaining. Stop being woke. That's all I gotta say to you guys. Don't all of a sudden now, quote unquote, acknowledge black Americans being fucked over by the system because now Donald Trump is being touched. No, keep the same energy. So I just want to make that very clear. Although I want to say one last time, yes, Donald Trump's conviction will probably not affect him during the election. But the reason I say that is because of Joe Biden's poor performance on the economy and foreign policy, right? So that's why I'm saying it. But any white conservative out here who wants to make it seem as if, oh, well, no. Well, the real reason why Trump's conviction will not affect him is because somehow, him being convicted is going to appeal to black voters. It is retarded. Because all that's going to do is alienate them, because all that's going to show is that you guys knew the entire time the system was undermining black Americans, but you didn't care. And now that Donald Trump's been touched, all of a sudden now you guys want to quote unquote, now you guys all of a sudden want to acknowledge the problem with the system now that it's affecting white folks. No, keep the same energy. We don't want to hear. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, in regards to the topic, yeah, Donald Trump, despite the conviction and everything, probably will do okay because, as long as Joe Biden's record on the economy and foreign policies is as bad as it is, Trump will do fine. And when it comes to white conservatives, stop trying to quote unquote use Donald Trump's conviction or I guess trying to make it seem as if, because Trump has been convicted, that's going to appeal to black voters. Because all that's going to do is turn them off. Because now what they're going to hear is, so in other words, you knew the system was fucked against black Americans, but you didn't care. But you're only now willing to acknowledge the system is fucked because now, quote unquote, Donald Trump has been touched. That's not going to work. It is what it is. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next topic, right? So, number one, Trump's conviction is now going to affect him because of, Joe Biden's poor performance on the economy and foreign policy. But number two, in addition to that, I believe that if we look at the election overall, if I had to put a percentage of the chance of Trump winning, I would say it's 80-20, meaning there's an 80% chance that Trump wins the election, and there's a 20% chance that Biden wins the election. And I'm going to go and just list all the different reasons why that's the case. So first with Donald Trump, right? The reason why I think Trump won the election is, one, the economy, right? Not, like I said before, Biden's horrible, and I mean horrible mismanaged the economy, I think, will give Trump an edge. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, Joe Biden essentially, doing this proxy war, Ukraine, and the whole sanction thing has backfired on America, which has kind of helped destabilize the America's overall economy. So, Joe Biden's bad, management of the economy, I think, will play a role in Trump being able to win the presidency. Number two, another reason why I think Trump could win the presidency, I believe, is the migration issue. Let's be honest here, okay? When you had those migrants that came in and that just, because they've always been here, but the numbers in which they came in, going to neighborhoods, going to Platt, the whole migration issue thing, and how it turned off a lot of voters, I think that will also play a role in regards to Donald Trump essentially potentially winning the election. So the economy and the migration issue. And third but not least, I think another reason why Trump could win the election is that black American voters, and let's just keep it, now there are other minorities, but black Americans specifically, right, they have felt betrayed by Joe Biden. Because from their point of view, they were the ones that were really out here going hard for Joe Biden to get Trump out of office, just to have Biden come into office. And Biden essentially he is giving every other group something, Black Americans. He's giving folks the anti-Asian crime bill. He's passing all this stuff. But when it came to Black Americans, no, Black Americans can't get a hate crime bill. Black Americans can get reparations. So I think the sort of disgruntled Black vote, in addition to the migration issue and the bad mismanagement of the economy, I think will also play a role, as well as a bad mismanagement of the foreign policy. So just to kind of go over it, the reason why I think Trump will win the election, because one, Joe Biden's mismanagement of the economy, his management of foreign policy, the migration issue, and the disgruntled Black vote. Now, that's an 80% chance that Trump will win, and those are the reasons why. But there is still, in my opinion, a 20% chance that Biden will win, right? And the 20% chance that Biden will win, right, is based on these reasons. One, the Roe versus Wade vote. I believe that if Joe Biden is really able to get women to really come out here and vote in reaction to the whole, because yes, the economy is better. I feel like people, I think, underestimate how much women, I think, even women on the right, reacted to the whole, quote unquote, the rights being taken away with it. So I think if Joe Biden is really able to get the quote unquote female vote to come out here because of abortion as well, I think that may play a role in him winning the election. Number two, right, the anti-DI push by Republicans. Although Black Americans and many minorities, although Black Americans in general feel disgruntled by Joe Biden, they could still come out here and vote for Joe Biden because of just how blatant Republicans have been in regards to the whole anti-DI push. Yes, the whole anti-DI push applies to all the minority groups, but for a lot of Black Americans, it really is perceived as targeting them specifically. Because once again, we already know that when it comes to affirmative action, a lot of this stuff, right, Black Americans typically are viewed as the face of those things. Even though in reality, they're not the biggest beneficiaries, they're viewed as a face. So when Republicans are openly talking about, we got to get rid of DI, get rid of the woke. For example, right now, right, you have, I think this group, there's, I believe, venture capital company, I believe, that's being sued. There is this organization that essentially provides money to Black film businesses, right, and is being sued because, quote unquote, is for discrimination, right? So all of that is part of the whole anti-DI push, anti-racial push, anti-woke push. And we'll see what happens to that organization that provides capital and funding to Black-owned businesses. We'll see how that plays out. But the fact that that's being sued, the fact that they've rolled back affirmative action, goes to clouds, all of that, I think, may be enough to get Black Americans to come out of it. Because, if they perceive the whole anti-DI push, which, yes, it targets minorities in general, but really, if Black Americans feel like it's really coming for them, like they're the real target, I think that may be enough for them to go out here and vote for Joe Biden, even if they feel disgruntled about him. And the third thing I think that could play Joe Biden's quote unquote favor is, and people don't talk about this, the disgruntled white Republican voter. There are a lot of white Republican voters who feel very angry about the fact that, from their point of view, the entire Republican Party has been seized by Trump. Like, the Republican Party is just Trump now, right? That's what, what is, I'm going to give you an example. If I ask somebody, what is MAGA? They won't answer because MAGA doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm going to give you an example. Donald Trump recently came out saying that if he gets into office, he is going to essentially try to push a policy in which, if you're a foreigner who graduates from a college or university, you will be given a green card. Now, when I heard, I said, damn, I wonder how the Trump supporters are going to react to this, right? I look at the comments, they're supportive of it. And I'm like, wait a minute. You guys love complaining about immigrants, all that kind of stuff. But the moment in which Donald Trump is now saying now, oh, he is open to putting in place a policy to help import people, essentially, educated people to the country, I guess, give them green cards. All of a sudden now, because Donald Trump has a pro-immigration stance, now you guys are cool with it? Now, to be fair, right, this applies to foreigners who graduate college. So this is typically folks, who came here as students from overseas and who went to college and actually have, degrees and everything, right? But still, the point is that is not the quote-unquote, that is a major departure from the whole anti-immigration rhetoric that we've been hearing. Although he may have the same energy about the illegal immigrants, the point is that the fact that that when he gets to office, he'll push for a policy to give green cards to foreigners who graduate at a U.S. university and college. And I'm like, that's not really anti-immigration, is it? Which proves my point that I did. Look, these low birth rates affect business and state interests, meaning that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's in office. They're going to address that. They're going to address that low birth. They're going to address the issue, which means finding ways to import, specifically finding ways to have a controlled, manageable importing of people, especially those the folks who are talented, right, who can contribute and pay to the system. So it's just fascinating to me that the moment Donald Trump said that, all the MAGA voters were cool with it. So, MAGA doesn't even mean it anymore. MAGA literally just means whatever Donald Trump says it means, that they're on board. So if Trump is now all of a sudden if Donald Trump comes out like he did recently, right, say, hey, I am pro, the quote-unquote high-skilled foreign worker being imported here and being allowed to stay, or I guess, importing high, talent from across the globe, all of a sudden now, because Trump is in favor of quote-unquote importing foreign talent, all of a sudden now the MAGA voters are cool. So even the whole idea of MAGA doesn't mean anything anymore. So the point I'm trying to say is that, look, the Republican Party is just Trump now. And there's a lot of conservative voters who are angry about that, who are like, yo, my party is unrecognizable. There's no principles. And personally, I'm going to keep it real with you. I believe that's the reason why Trump lost. I believe that a lot of moderate Republican voters didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020. Because they were like, yo, we're tired of the Republican Party being the Trump Party. And I believe that if enough of these people don't come up with Trump, Biden could win. So although there's an 80% chance that Trump could win, there's still a 20% chance. And the 20% chance of Biden winning is based on these three things. One, if women come out here and vote because of the whole abortion issue. Two, if Black Americans and minorities come out here and vote because they have been completely enraged by the whole anti-DI push by the Republicans. And three, if enough, moderate conservatives choose not to vote because they do not want the Republican Party to become the Trump Party. They're tired of that. So all those things could I think, are the reasons in which Biden could win. But that's only 20%. So we'll see. So although I'm saying that there's an 80% chance that Trump could win, there's still that 20% chance, and I've broken down the factors why. So overall, to summarize the video, number one, Donald Trump's conviction is not going to affect the election because of Joe Biden's mismanagement of the economy and his mismanagement of foreign policy. And then number two, I also went into deeper detail as to why I believe Donald Trump will win the election, in addition to quote-unquote Joe Biden's mismanagement of the economy and foreign policy, which also includes the migration issue and the disgruntled Black voters. And on top of that, I also dived into, of course, the quote-unquote 20% possibility in which Joe Biden can win, which is, of course, the female vote coming out in regards to abortion, minorities coming out hard because of the whole anti-DI push on Republicans, and of course, on top of that, the disgruntled GOP voter who does not want the Republican Party to become the Trump Party. So that essentially is my video, guys. And you guys let me know what you guys think in the chat. I know I've not uploaded in a while. That was a pretty long video, but yep, that's about it. With that being said, y'all, thank you. Tell me in the chat what you guys think about the video. With that being said, like, share, subscribe, hammer out.